Hi there, I'm Guy Allen. Welcome to Motorcycle TV. This gadget we're playing with today is Harley Davidson Street Glide. Now this is one of the new generation bikes brought out for the 2014 model year. It's part of the Rushmore Project. Now the Rushmore Project was Harley Davidson going through its big bike range like a dose of salts and really bringing them up another level. Over 100 significant changes through the range. This particular engine, it's a shade under 1700cc, 103 cubic inches, and it's the air-cooled version of the Rushmore engine. There's also a liquid-cooled version. Now this bike runs 6-speed box, wet clutch as you'd expect. Very typical Harley Davidson architecture really. That big 45-degree V-twin is still a distinctive gadget in its own right. Puts out mid-70s on the horsepower front. The performance is good, and this is in absolutely bog stock standard form, so the standard mufflers on it, and that's really been one of the massive changes for Harley Davidson over the decades. Is you can actually leave the stock pipes on it and it'll perform okay. One important advance has been the modifications to the Batwing fairing. It's a very familiar shape, but it now has a slot through the front of it which produces a laminar style airflow behind the fairing and stops, of all things, beard lift. You'd now get a much smoother airflow behind the fairing. A very welcome trick. Performance is certainly strong enough. There's nothing to be ashamed about with this bike. It gets along well, strong mid-range. There's a bit of top end there. It does actually like to rev. It's a lively enough piece of machinery. There's certainly enough there to keep you entertained. What's it like as a ride? Very low seat, and of course it's a bagger, so it's got that low cut touring styling, that cut down fairing, and just the bags, no top box. Gear shift action is very accurate, tiny bit on the stiff side. The clutch lever still has a fairly solid pull to it, but overall the transmission and clutch work well. Steering is more or less what you'd expect on a big cruiser. It's actually a little more nimble than some of its predecessors, and it certainly responds well enough. It's very easy to handle at low speed. Out on the highway it's got plenty of stability, so pretty much ticking all the boxes on that front. Suspension is on the plush side. It's built for comfort rather than speed, which again is pretty much what you'd want on a motorcycle like this. It's quite a low seat as I mentioned, generous foot boards, you've got a heel toe change lever, all very good. It's really designed for someone who's medium height or even lower. For a tall person like me, I'm finding myself struggling just a tiny bit for leg room, and I think I'd be looking for something else in the range, or maybe even just putting a different seat on this one. Either way, I'd want a little bit of adjustment there, I think. Speaking of seats, pillion seat on this isn't fantastic. Again, if you're taking a pillion as a regular person, then you definitely want a different seat on that. The brakes are probably huge news for Harley Davidson. Brembos, they're linked and they've got ABS. Big safety net there. They work really nicely. They're strong, they've got plenty of feel, absolutely no complaints there, and it's a while since I've been able to say that about a cruiser. So that part of it works well. Fair bit of bling on this particular bike. It's got a very sophisticated stereo or sound system. There's a lot of features to it. It's one of those things you'd need to sit down and really work your way through the owner's manual to get the best out of it. It's also got cruise control. So underneath that satin black finish on this particular bike, there's actually a fairly sophisticated piece of machinery. Performance, as I mentioned, is okay. Fuel economy, you'd expect about mid-teens per litre, thereabouts, typical Harley figures. Overall, as a package, the finish is very good. One disappointment is there's a bit of rust in the standard mufflers, which I could live without, but the rest of the package I'd actually be pretty happy with. What's it good for? If you don't want the big full-blown tourer, you want something that's got maybe just a bit more of an edge to it styling, then this is definitely in the ballpark, and I'd be seriously considering it if a bagger happens to be your thing. The price is a little under $35,000, but not cheap, but as a Harley, it's got that brand name and of course that history. Look for a full test in Motorcycle Trader magazine.